It was January last time my brother and I both came to you at the same time to talk about the current events as they happen, and so much has changed since then. If you had told me then that not even 3 months later we would be practicing social distancing, people would be fighting over toilet paper in the grocery store, I would have looked at you a little bit askance. But that is the status quo. Now, first and foremost, we do want to say that we hope that you are staying safe, being cautious, keeping your loved ones safe and healthy as well, and we do want to give our condolences to everyone who may have lost loved ones as a result of COVID-19. But we also want to do with this video is really do something different than what we've seen from the mainstream media and even from other creators on this platform. We know that there is a lot of sensationalism that's going on currently around the coronavirus, and we aspire to do differently and to look at things from a different perspective. What we want to do is talk not just about the history of pandemics and the presidential responses thereto, but also look at the human aspect of how to really process and digest this and move forward without losing hope altogether. Welcome to the Wright Brothers. Now, many of you heard about the coronavirus for the first time back in mid-February when news of its spread began to really become mainstream news. But my brother and I were actually privy to some knowledge about that back as early January. And we've seen the virus continue to spread, not just from its point of origin in China, but also to affect our homeland. It has come to our shores. But what we also have seen is a very marked response depending on political affiliation. And we've talked many times about how we do not ascribe to that level of extreme team sports as it relates to politics. And we really want to continue to apply that same ideological lens to these current events as they continue to transpire here on the homeland. Now, America, and honestly the entire globe, is no stranger to pandemics whatsoever. We go back to the Spanish flu of 1918, we go back to the bubonic plague, the Black Death. Many other pandemics have swept across the country and across the world in general. It's important to be mindful of the scope and scale of this pandemic as it relates to many other pandemics that we are well aware of throughout the course of human history. We've seen people in the mainstream media who have gone to all lengths to ascribe blame to President Trump. And we've seen also people on the right side of the aisle ascribe retroactive blame to former President Obama, for his handling of the swine flu or H1N1 pandemic back in 2009. What we want to do, though, is set the record straight. Let it be known that back in 2009, while President Obama did not issue a national emergency until October of that year, actually in April of that year, 1 month after it first came to our shores, he did announce a public health emergency. So we do have to give him credit where it is due. And we also want to make sure that through all this, that we are not trying to say that everything that happens under a president is that president's fault and their fault alone. The president's job is to lead the country, yes. But the president's job also is to surround themselves with the right people and the right top experts and doctors to make sure that he is always well informed and that messaging that he puts out to the American people continues to change as the status quo changes. 3 days before the Super Bowl actually was when President Trump announced that he was commissioning a coronavirus task force to help better understand and try to prevent the spread of this virus from China, where it originated, to the United States. He did initially say that it might not be as big of a deal to worry about, but as we've seen, based on the counsel that he has had, that message has changed and has gotten much more serious as time has passed. It's important to remember that when presidents make these decisions or they make these statements, one of the president's jobs is to keep the American people safe, and part of that safety is not material safety, but it is emotional safety. And that's sometimes the tack that presidents try to take with people, is to try to keep people from going completely crazy, acting like the sky is falling. Because as we've seen, many people have chosen to act just that way, fighting for paper products and what have you in the grocery stores, instead of just remaining calm and being pragmatic. It's important that we don't fall for this sensationalism that has seeped into politics in our everyday ways of life, because when you do, you're almost ascribing to a herd or pack mentality, making irrational decisions just because you see everyone else making the same irrational decisions. We want to caution you away from that. We want to also make sure that we know there's a lot of misinformation, misrepresentation out there of the facts on both sides of the aisle. And it's important to remain cognizant of the fact that this virus does not care if you are Republican or Democrat, if you're in a red state or if you're in a blue state. It is going to continue to spread. And it's important for us to make sure that we are aware of ways to keep it from spreading. And that leads me to obviously talking about social distancing and all these tactics that are being advised now in light of its continuing spread through our country. And we've seen a lot of people act cavalier towards some of these suggestions, still going out or engaging in all sorts of reckless or needlessly unsafe behaviors, as if they are immune from the virus. And it's important we take the proper precautions to make sure we're not needlessly putting other people in harm's way. It's important for us to actually heed these guidelines, no matter what age you are, no matter what part of the country you're in, because at the end of the day, we all want to come through this and move forward together without needlessly putting other lives at risk. But it's also important at the end of the day to also look at the way human people are interacting with this virus, the way human people are digesting this virus. So much of this is always made political. And my older brother now, I want him to go ahead and share some of his thoughts on how to digest this and approach this virus outbreak and pandemic from a uniquely human perspective, completely stripping away politics and just looking at this just as how you, an individual, can best get through this. So for more on that, I'm gonna turn the floor over to my brother now.
Well, yeah, thank you, Damani. And like you've said, this is something that is unprecedented in the modern era. Actually, I've been talking to a number of people, and there's something that I keep coming back to is historians are going to be referring back to the spring of 2020 for a very, very long time, perhaps for the rest of our lives. And it's hard to fathom a single global event that's had as much impact in the interim since 9/11. And while that may sound like a weird juxtaposition to make, 9/11 versus the coronavirus, stop and think about it. 9/11 literally changed the American way of life. It changed the way of life around the globe. But specifically for America, you can think of how life was before 9/11 and after 9/11, and it's very different in a number of ways. I think we're going through the same sort of watershed moment with the country's reaction to the COVID-19 virus. And it's important to remember that, like Damani said, we don't get into the team sports aspect of politics as much as some do on the right and on the left. We are the Wright brothers, but the right is not always just about which side of the political aisle we're on. It's about being ideologically consistent and being correct. And right here, I think the correct response is to eschew the team sports aspect of it. That it's not about Democrats, it's not about Republicans, it's not about how Obama handled this, it's not about how Trump is handling that. Let's talk about how you are handling things within your own community. Many of you are going through struggles of your own just based on the way the country has chosen to face the coronavirus. You may be facing loss of job, you may be facing isolation, those senses of community. For many who are of faith, you're not able to congregate. My wife and I and child, we had to go to a drive-in church here in San Antonio where no one was allowed to even roll down their windows. We had to listen to the sermon being preached on the radio, and it was a novel experience, but also very different because a lot of times we seek out that human contact when we are fearful, when we are nervous, when we are anxious about what may be going on in the world. And this is a unique situation in that we're not able to do that. We're advised specifically against that. Social distancing is not a term I'd ever thought would become popular in the year 2020, but yet here we are. So how do we approach this from here? Like I said, how are you approaching this in your own community? What are you doing to help? A lot of my friends have been very intentional about going out and supporting these local businesses, these local mom and pop coffee shops that may be relying on that day-to-day traffic just to stay relatively in the black and make their bottom line. Help those friends of yours that may be out of work. Find some way to get them involved in the gig economy. Look for people who you may not have interacted with before. Now you're forced to online because you have a little bit more time on your hands. How are you spending that time? Are you spending it trying to pin blame on President Trump or trying to exalt him maybe unnecessarily? My suggestion to you is if you are getting too wrapped up in the politics of a virus, like Damani said, that will infect you whether you're Democrat, Republican, Independent, Libertarian, or other, maybe you're missing the mark just a little bit. Where we are at as a country, this is a unique time that we have to come together as Americans, much the same way we did after 9/11, and focus on what really matters to us as a country. And I think, and I've been actually extremely heartened, especially here in the San Antonio community. A lot of people that have stepped up. Specifically, I have to give a shout out to our local grocery store, HEB. For those of you who are not in Texas, y'all are seriously missing out. No store does more is their motto, and they have completely acquitted themselves well throughout this entire ordeal, just how they've handled it. And I think people are starting to take their cues from that. It's important to realize that the sky is not, in fact, falling. The sun, the world will continue to spin. The sun will come up the next day. So my suggestion to you is maybe put down the news source for a little bit. And I'm not saying to be uninformed. Definitely glean the facts that you need and the information, and monitor the trends, especially those that affect you. But once you've gleaned that information, don't get so far into the weeds that it affects your entire outlook on life. Because especially at this time when mental health is crucial to making it through a crisis, you have to remember that if it bleeds, it leads is a saying in the news business for a reason. And they will keep pushing the negative at you until you leave any session with the news basically embittered and angry and anxious. So I suggest that we get away from being so absorbed in our smartphones, in our tablets. Get in the faces of your family, in your very small social circle, and figure out what makes them tick. That this is a unique time that we have to maybe peel back some layers that we've put between ourselves as Americans in this society right now. And we will get through this stronger, but we will only get through this stronger with the right attitude. And the more people adopt that right attitude, the quicker that we will be able to find solutions for our communities. And once that happens, we can hopefully press forward on a more national level. So my message to y'all, this was not as political as we usually get, but it's one of encouragement. A lot of y'all are going through it. We see the messages on social media. We see the posts. We had people reach out to each of us personally. We feel for you. We are praying for you, sending you good wishes if you're not religious. This is about coming together as Americans and combating something that we have not faced in the modern era. And history is going to look back and evaluate how we came through this. And I think we will come through with flying colors like we usually do as a country, but that starts with each and every one of us individually. So that's all I have. I'm going to get back in my family's faces a whole lot more, that's for sure. Damani, what else do you have to combat a little bit more of this fear-based covers that we've been seeing?
Yeah, there's a great poem by Rudyard Kipling that was actually published in 1910, 110 years ago. And the first two lines simply say, "If you can keep your head when those about you are losing theirs and blaming it on you." And the poem goes on, and I'm not going to recite the whole thing here tonight, but what we do want to do is just really make you hearken back to those words and encourage you to think about that as the days and weeks continue to stretch on. We know that here in Texas, our stay-at-home order or shelter-in-place order more or less is in effect until the end of the month at the very least, or at the earliest. And we just want to make sure that people are staying hopeful and staying confident that we will rebound. This too shall pass. And just encourage you to keep moving forward and encouraging those around you, because there is so much to live for, so much to look forward to, and we can't wait to get there right along with you. But we want to know how you're reacting to COVID-19, all the social changes that we've seen. We want to engage with you. We want you to share your stories. If you know someone who has come down with it, then we'd like you to share that as well, so we can better pray for you or lift you up accordingly. We also just want to say that we are here for you as well, even if it is just through the screen or in the comment section. We love engaging with y'all, so we do want to engage with y'all through that medium to the best of our abilities. So please feel free to leave a comment. And we also want to give a special shout out to everyone who supported us through Patreon. And we also know that these times are extenuating. And we realize that people who even are patrons now may not even have those resources laying around, and that's completely okay. We don't want you to feel any guilt for that. If you do have to recant your pledge or whatever, we'll get through this as well. We're here for you, and we will find a way to continue to do this as long as God gives us the opportunity. We want to thank those of you who have supported us and continue to support us moving forward. Also, feel free to engage us on our Facebook page, The Wright Brothers IPID, where we try to share more uplifting and encouraging news as well. And also just stay in tune with the current events, not to a huge degree where you're oversaturated with it, but enough so you to also know that we're keeping an eye on all fronts as well. We want to thank you for taking this time to join us. We really do hope you are staying safe, staying healthy, and hugging your loved ones tight, because tomorrow is not promised, but we do know that with God, all things are possible, and we will get through this together. But we appreciate y'all taking this time, and we will see you in the next one.
The first revolution is when you change your mind about how you look at things and see that there might be another way to look at it that you have not been shown. The revolution will not be televised, and be no rerun, brothers and sisters. The revolution will be live.